Coming up on Mountain News this morning, parts of Kentucky dealt with flooding over the weekend as some folks wait for the water to go down. And more cuts are coming to the Social Security office with plans to downsize the technology team.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning. I'm Amelia Lee here with you on this Monday, April 7th, and the time is now 6:29 this morning, which means it's time to check on in with meteorologist Megan Dusmall today. And I know, Megan, I experienced a good amount of rain on my drive, not like pouring down rain, but definitely more than I would have liked to experience today, especially with holding an open cup of coffee in my hand.
Oh, maybe you should not be driving.
Well, I put it down as I drove, but going outside with the open cup of coffee really cooled it down for me.
Oh yeah, it cooled it down not only because of the rain though, but because of those temperatures. Because this morning we're looking a little bit chillier than we've definitely been looking last week. Here's a look at those current temperatures out the door, mainly sitting in the upper 30s and low 40s, seeing 40s and 50s for our Virginia counties. But as we head into the afternoon, we will be warming up a little bit. So there's a saving grace with that. We're looking in the 50s with the exception of Wise, which will be in the upper 40s. Now, unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news. We'll continue to see temperatures decline as we're heading into the overnight hours, looking in the upper 20s and low 30s. A lot of our counties under a freeze warning today. Now let's talk about the rain, because as she mentioned, there was a little bit of rain this morning. It's since moved out, the heavier rain has. Now we're just looking at light to moderate rainfall across the area, and it'll start to taper off as you're heading throughout the day, looking at lingering chances as you're heading into the afternoon, and then clearing out by Tuesday morning. Here's a look at the next 12 hours. We're looking at cloudy skies during the morning, mostly cloudy as you're heading into the afternoon and evening hours, and the high temperature for the day will actually be around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock this evening. Amelia.
Thank you, Megan. With severe weather impacting parts of the region, it's important to stay safe on the roads. Downed trees and bark on the roadways can become hazardous, with standing water also a possibility in some areas. Officials with AAA of the Bluegrass say if you see debris in the roadways, do what you can to avoid it.
On wet roadways, even if it's not pooling on the roadways, if they're just wet from these storms that we've been having, that increases the amount of space that your vehicle needs to come to a stop. So you need to slow down in those sorts of situations.
If you are in an emergency weather situation, you should call 911. In Powell County, search and rescue teams are active around Clay City and the Red River Gorge. Water rescuers help people and pets evacuate their homes over the weekend. Powell County Judge Executive Eddie Barnes says their main concern was flooding from creeks in the Red River. Bullitt County was hit hard by the heavy rain over the weekend. Officials say some parts of the county are cut off by the water, leaving some people trapped. Emergency crews reached out to them to see if they wanted to be evacuated. Meanwhile, others in the area watch the water levels rise and get closer and closer to their homes. Come next weekend, the only rumbling in Louisville will be the Ohio River. Kentucky Derby Festival President Matt Gibson announced there will be no air show or fireworks this year to kick off Derby season. Flooding is going to continue into next week in Louisville, with water expected to cover virtually the entire waterfront in a scene similar to 2018.
And we know our focus needs to be on the community and all of those affected by weather. It is a tough decision, but it is the right decision.
The heavy rain and rising water have been hard to miss, but few saw this announcement coming. Officials say thunder alone brings in roughly $126 million in economic impact to the area. During the weekend, there was an apartment fire in Hazard. The Hazard Fire Department was called to the 2500 block of North Main Street on Saturday to put out the fire. Initial reports said a man was trapped inside the building, but he was found safe next door. Crews were able to put the fire out and leave the scene around 4:30 in the evening. No injuries were reported. The Housing Development Alliance got a new home energy rating system, or HERS, on a house they built. The house is for a single mother of 3. The score was 37, which officials with HDA say is the best score they've ever gotten. Mindy Miller with the Housing Development Alliance says the home is actually larger than the standard floor plan, with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, as well as more than 1,400 square feet.
Well, we hope we can keep all these scores really low like this. You know, for us to get a 37, we're celebrating that because that means that house is 63% more energy efficient than the typical home built in the United States.
She says the average U.S. home normally gets a HERS rating of 100. Miller says the home could save the homeowner more than $2,000 a year on the cost of energy. The Labor Department turned out a better than expected jobs report for last month, but is the calm before the storm? CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady digs into the latest data.
A robust jobs report for the month of March rolled out in the shadow of an escalating trade war.
Higher tariffs will be working their way through our economy and are likely to raise inflation in coming quarters.
The Labor Department report shows the U.S. added 228,000 jobs last month, far exceeding expectations, and unemployment ticked up slightly to 4.2%. Bankrate senior economic analyst Mark Hamrick.
We're relieved to see a rebound in leisure and hospitality. That includes bars and restaurants, transportation and warehousing, all part of the supply chain of retailing. Also added jobs on the month.
Healthcare also saw strong gains, but there was no big movement in manufacturing. And federal employment declined amid the Trump administration's ongoing efforts to shrink the government payroll.
We know that announced job cuts have totaled more than 200,000, so it's going to take some time, assuming that those job cuts are sustained, for it to show up in the data.
Digital communications specialist Jessica Henry was let go in a mass layoff at the National Institutes of Health just this week.
Most of my career has been in public service. I've been very dedicated to that.
Henry socked away money and tightened spending in case this day came, as she considers her next step.
I'm really hoping that I can find a comparable position in the private sector. I don't know how hopeful I am because so many other people are also looking right now.
Payroll processing group ADP reported solid private sector growth last month, and the hope is that the private sector could absorb some of those public sector losses. But we will see how the president's tariffs weigh on employers over the next few months. Kelly O'Grady, CBS News, New York.
Another technicality on those federal job cuts: workers either placed on administrative leave or receiving severance are still considered employed in the Labor Department's tally. Key House conservatives rejected the Senate budget resolution hours after the chamber passed their budget blueprint. House Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris and House Budget Committee Chair Jody Arrington both criticized the budget resolution on social media Saturday. Arrington described it as being, quote, unserious and disappointing. Both chambers must agree to the same budget blueprint in order to unlock the filibuster-proof process called budget reconciliation. There are plans for a new proposal to be made this week. The Social Security Administration is getting ready to cut off a chunk of their technology team as part of the large-scale federal job cuts. The Office of the Chief Information Officer has been told to cut 30% of its staff. It comes as the agency deals with more computer system crashes. The office had about 3,200 workers, but it has already lost hundreds due to retirement and separation incentives. Recent firings within the CDC and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health are impacting Kentuckians. The mass firings wiped out divisions that were focused on the health and safety of miners, firefighters, and healthcare workers. Ongoing investigations to ensure the safety of life-saving breathing equipment were immediately stopped. Industry officials, lawmakers, and unions representing workers that rely on the agency's protections all called on HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to reverse course. The Department of Veterans Affairs is the latest federal agency to once again give employees the option to resign. In an email to employees, Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins said the ultimate goal is to reduce the agency's workforce by 15%. Last month, he said the department is looking to lay off roughly 80,000 employees. President Donald Trump is granting another extension for TikTok to find a new buyer or face a ban in the states. The president took to social media, saying he's signing an executive order to keep the popular social media platform up and running for an additional 75 days, as the U.S. continues to work with TikTok and China to close a deal. TikTok's Chinese parent company had faced a Saturday deadline to sell the app to a U.S.-based buyer to prevent it from going dark nationwide.
Now that we're at each other's throats, this trade war getting hot and getting even hotter, it really does look like TikTok might be sort of a bargaining chip of sorts. And I think that the president and the White House have always seen the platform as something as a point of leverage to extract concessions out of China. China, of course, is deeply reluctant to surrender its control of the platform.
Amazon, the biggest e-commerce platform in the world, is among companies that have put in a bid to acquire TikTok. ByteDance has previously said it has no plans to sell the app. Measles vaccination rates in the U.S. may be lower than expected. A new report shows nearly a third of young children did not get their first shot on time. In 2024, just less than 69% had it by 15 months. That's down from 77% in 2020. Only 80% had both doses by age 6, well below the 95% target needed to prevent outbreaks. Officials reported at least 565 measles cases so far this year, one of the highest counts since the disease was declared eliminated.
We're seeing fog chances this morning across eastern Kentucky, seeing the highest amount of fog chances as you're traveling more towards Virginia. Could see up to maybe 0.3 mile visibility in Wise. So just be careful if you're heading out on the road this morning. Make sure you have your low beams on, drive slow. Be aware of other drivers on the road. Here's a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar, because that's another thing you got to consider on your drive this morning, mainly seeing that the rain chances are to the east of I-75, but you still have some more rain chances throughout the day. Here's a look at those current temperatures in the 30s and 40s, looking at 40s and 50s as you're traveling towards Virginia. Now, as we go into that forecast high this afternoon, for the most part, we'll be sitting in that 50-degree range, seeing up to 59 degrees in Manchester, but 48 sticks out as you're traveling towards Wise this evening. Here's a look at that bus stop forecast. On the way to school, temperatures will be quite chilly, so you might need that coat and a rain jacket, as we do have some chances of rain with temperatures in the low 40s. Heading home, we'll be looking in the upper 40s and low 50s with mostly cloudy skies. Stay with us. More mountain news and weather is on the way.